name, address, phone number. Maybe that is also is a helpful thing to do. You can do it through local, like used to be Almeida Brady. Shirts and More, I think is what it's called. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. And you can also do medic alerts. One of the things just to think about when you do a bracelet is if you travel a lot and you're out of this county, will it work or not? You know, because if they disappear in Yakima and you have only 911 contact, that's not going to work out so well. Because their information is Kittitas County.
Correct.
Right. And if anyone needs help getting a bracelet for financial needs, there is a group who've come together to help get bracelets for people. And you can get that information through parent to parent. I hope everybody picked up the sheet on what? This sheet that has everybody's information on it. It also has the location for the form on it. So a great resource to keep in mind. I have a question for you. So this information is really embedded in an address, is that correct? And a family person record?
A name and or address.
Okay. So when you hit on that, does that automatically come to your attention? So if you go to My Address for a Flyer, do you automatically know that there's special information in there?
This information isn't an automatic table that would be linked to that for public disclosure reasons.
Okay.
Because we did not want it to be subject to public disclosure. So that would be something that we would need to search secondary to.
And that is a standard procedure that you guys do?
That would be something that we would have to do, yes.
Is it standard that that is done when you go to an address?
Not at this time, it's not.
Okay.
Like I said, we're in the process, working with the forms and actually developing the
And you know I'm not
procedure.
doing any accusations. Again,
Yeah.
parents ask questions, and then when they talk to law enforcement, they're told one thing. And even if you talk to an emergency first responder, they don't necessarily understand the whole thing, and then it gets confusing and rumors starts and so forth. But it is something, and these people are reaching out to help us. By the way, this has nothing to do really with autism. It's special needs, whether it be Alzheimer, whatever issue you have where someone could potentially get into a place. This is a great resource that you're creating for us. And next year we're going to have someone from law enforcement. We're going to get them involved too.
I guess the last thing too is if the bracelet, I know sometimes people don't like the word bracelet, so there's something else. We talked about alternative means, and if we came up with, you talked about shoelace or something.
Right.
If we came up with something, as consistent as it could be, because again, if I can sort of give everybody a place to look, then it'll make it more likely that we're going to recognize it when we arrive. Like I said, if somebody doesn't want to wear a bracelet, we look for bracelets and necklaces. We could easily look for a shoelace or something else that sort of makes sense, but that would be something that we have to sort of be that third alternative. But it would need to be pretty consistent. Otherwise, we might miss it, and then it's going to go down a little.
And the number of families that have taken advantage of this is fairly low?
It was very low for a while. We've seen a little bit of activity lately, and we're just going to continually try to refine it and make it work and make it available to people. And again, from the statistics you're giving, obviously people are going to be in the community their entire lives probably. So.
I just had a question. I meet with families at least once a year that are receiving services from our agency, and we always talk about emergency planning. And is it okay for us to hand out the form as well to folks? Just print a bunch of copies and start handing them out?
It's obviously something that's probably not everybody's going to want to do this, but if you see some value in it, then absolutely, I think that people should have that opportunity. And if they decide later that they don't want that information stored, we can contact them and get the removed and the information taken care of. So
I would love to see it part of IEPs. If teachers see where this might be of value, just to let them know that it's available to them. Because, even the school, I think, is somewhat terrified of when our kids wander off.
Oh, yeah.
And it's amazing that they haven't. Really bad outcomes have happened in the Yakima and Lower Valley where kids have wandered off and never to return. So this is a very real situation, especially when there's irrigation water and our kids are so attracted to water. It's terrifying. So anyway, thank you guys so much for coming. Does anyone else have any questions for them?
I have a comment. The federal government actually instituted a program this fall that will allow parents to get bracelets for free or other tracking devices for their children. And I'll get the information to you so that you can pass it out, but it
It
is
was
free.
a tracking device and it went through with different fundings.
Yes.
And it is
So
available.
parent to parent is the place to go. Again, Michelle's information is on the sheet.
I also wanted to add on to the first responders, emergency first responders kind of, and federal government aspects. I was reading on Wrong Planet, which is a forum, which for those of you who don't know, is a forum for, I guess, caters more towards higher functioning people with autism, and so a lot of people write just kind of what their experiences have been, what works, what doesn't, that kind of thing. And one of the things I know various individuals from different areas have done when they're higher functioning and they may go to like an area like an airport where their autism is going to show more, if that makes any sense. I know that's the case for me. Is some of them have done this little card that says, I have Asperger's, or I have autism, this is how my behavior presents itself. If I don't look you in the eye, if I'm stimming, don't take this personally, it's just how I am. And then their doctor writes their signature on the bottom of the card, and it's laminated so they can keep it on them. And they show it as they go through TSA. If they freak out, then TSA will pass them down with it.
Does it let them know how what type of stemming each individual does?
It lets them know, so like as an example, like for me, I will stim a lot more when I'm stressed. So should TSA be an instance, I would do that a lot more.
I guess my question is, so your stemming may be different than another individual's. Would you write out like,
I would probably write out
this is
what it
what
is.
my stemming looks like?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was just kind of a generalized thing that had like a little puzzle piece on it and everything, and just said, I have autism on the top of it. It was a really great idea.
I think that's really awesome.
And can I add on education piece that, as soon as if we get our kids open talking about their disability, it makes it much easier as they grow older, because in high school we expect kids to start advocating for themselves, because as adults, they've got to advocate for themselves. I mean, we see them as beautiful children, and they are. But as our society, the way it is, we have to teach our children to advocate for themselves. So, when like you're saying, having that little card, you can just explain, hey, if someone is wondering why you're being so weird, just tell them, hey, I've got autism. Or, my daughter is, she just says, hey, it's because I have ACC. And someone will go, well, what is ACC? So obviously you have to start when they're young, age appropriate, what their knowledge is about their disability, because it empowers them. It makes them realize, hey, everyone's got something, this is mine, I'm going to make a master of it.
I think we had a question or comment.
I just had a question about protocol for EMS. Is part of what a first responder will do to check the person's cell phone for any information? Is that not, because there are these ICE in case of emergency apps that, at least for our family, we have autism, what to do typed in there. So that's not...
Not routinely,
Okay.
and probably because there's 90% of the people who would look at that as being really kind of an invasion of privacy if you
Okay.
looked at their cell phone, or the family would. So I think that that's something that is, if that became more common and sort of understood, that we could certainly train people to look there. We look at certain places for information. But right now, we try not to handle people's wallets, we try not to handle people's cell phones, and certainly opening their cell phone would be sort of weird to some people. But I get, how valuable it could be, but we'd have to be sort of prompted to do it, and then it might make sense. But generally, I think people would react poorly to
Okay.
it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Or can we let these guys go? All right, so you guys can say you can be dismissed. I can wait if it makes you feel better. You have to leave. How's that? Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. wants one of those forms right now? Okay. Oh, yes. Michelle, can you bring up the cover?
I've never seen it.
Maybe you should, Rich can probably point it out on his way out. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is switch gears. And let's take up where John and Sue are, and let's bring them into age 16. Okay, because I think this is a pretty important age when we talk about transition. Transition being moving from the school situation into whatever happens after the school situation. And so at 16, what's important? Whoever wants to take these questions can take them. I know many of you have pieces later on, but I think probably Debbie is.
Well, let me tell you that actually you need to start before age 16. The year your child turns 16 is the first year you're going to have 2 more pieces added to your IEP. They're required by federal law. These are the forms that our high school uses. We have the transition plan, and attached to that transition plan is their course of study. So it's the year they turn 16. So actually, you need, in 8th grade, you need to start thinking about, like when they're 14, okay, what's this, what are we doing for transition? What classes are we going to be doing? And then when that next IEP comes, the more that you come prepared, the better it's going to help the teacher. Because what we are going to do is for the next 4 to 6 years, depending on their course life in high school, because a kid with a disability can be in high school until the year they turn 21.
Did everyone hear that? But that's only if a parent and the child get it in the IEP, right?
IEPs are so flexible. We can change it the day before graduation. But basically,
I'm going to keep that in mind and I'll pass it on. But it is important that parents have thought this out, and if that's their wishes, this is a really good time to make it clear.
Exactly. And you guys, things change. Every year you look at this IEP. That's why, at a minimum, you have to go in and look at that IEP every year, once a year. Because kids change. They get new strengths, they get new weaknesses, they get new interests. They, find boyfriends and girlfriends, whatever. Life changes. So what you do is with your high school case manager is that ideally you need to start maybe an age-appropriate transition assessment. And again, I stress that the parents take charge of this. Just, Elizabeth, you're nodding. Because it can get very, because in all honesty, parents know the kids the best. Teachers may present that they know what's best for your kid, but deep down, everyone knows, the parent knows what is best for their kid. Is it best for your kid to start vocational transitional training when they're 16, hands-on, doing simple tasks, in a job, in a shelter situation? Or is it best for them to be in a class where they learn soft skills, such as, how to communicate, how to present to the public, the different tools that they can have if someone asks them a question in a grocery store. So you need to start brainstorming. After that, you have to, with the teacher, your case manager, get some goals that you want to achieve in your transitional area. Transition is just a word that we're saying we're bridging the gap between education and career. Everyone deserves a career, even people with disabilities. And in the education world, we prepare you for that. Now, there's a lot more out there than just stocking shelves, as Carol will attest. And Debbie, there's many different routes that transition can look for your kid. But if it's not in the IEP, it will not be addressed. And that's why by law, it has to be in the IEP. If you want a transitional goal, you need to have a transitional goal. If you don't say anything about transition, and your kid seems pretty high functioning, we're going to check the gen ed box on the sheet. Because, you know, we have a lot of kids we're dealing with. And if your kid seems to be functioning okay, getting the transition career planning in gen ed, which is called CCR at Ellensburg High School. It's College Career Readiness. That's all it is. And everyone has to go to it. And it's the high school's attempt to help prepare them for after high school. Resource room will step in if your kid needs some extra help. So after you write down these measurable goals, you need to make sure the transition services, the people that provide it are identified. Is it Elmview? Is it Intrust? Is it Pam Tipton? Is it getting a hold of Juan Ortiz at DVR? Is it, we need to know, because there's so many people start to play in to the career of your child. There's so many different supports. And then you make sure that teacher, help her write that course of study. What do you want to see done? Do you want your child to be able to fill out a job application? Do you want them to be able to apply to 10 different colleges? I mean, where does your kid lay? Is it Johnny or is it Susie or is it Billy and Bob and Regina in the middle? Everyone has a different path. And then after that, follow up. You have to follow up. Every quarter you should be getting an IEP progress report from your case manager, from the teachers that serve your child. Follow up. If there's no progress being made on that goal, well, go tweak it. Why is that? Is it inappropriate? Is it there's no funding for it? I mean, it's terrible that says, because we always think there should be funding for everything. But, why isn't there progress being made? I think, and that's how you get started. If you just go Google on the internet, transition plan checklist, you'll get a lot of different things. My favorite one that I hand out, and I have my juniors, I'm the CCR leader for the juniors at the high school, and I had them do this last week in CCR. It's a transitional planning checklist and transitional planning sheet that the Informing Families Building Trust gives out. And I have 28 juniors on IEPs that we're trying to make plans for, after high school. And every single kid, because I have them circled, what do you think you need more help in? Come on, we only get to meet 3 more times. Give me some help. Every single kid circled money management and budgeting. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, you guys are 17, 18s, and it surprised me because I would have thought they had a better handle on money management. And one girl says, well, I'm going to go to YVCC and I'm supposed to fill out a FAFSA. And she happens to be on the autism spectrum. And she says, I don't know how to do that. So we help them. So as a parent, you can go into your kid's case manager and say, hey, I need help with this. I know, this is so terrible. What's going on?
We're wrapping us tomorrow.
I know, it's so terrible. My kids just laugh and laugh. So we have all of these. There's some back there. This is where I would start. I also have some worksheets that what parents can do to prepare your kids for transition. And the number one thing is, if I could tell you as a parent-to-parent or teacher-to-family, is that don't allow your child to use a disability as an excuse. It is not an excuse. My favorite saying to my kids, and it's very blunt, but it's laziness is not a disability. You get off your butt and you do the work. Disability means you have to work twice as hard. You can still do it. And it's so neat when they can see, when they get that job or they get that application done to the college. And so transition is just a whole other world you have to start navigating, but it's an easy want to navigate. There's lots of resources.
Get right to you, give me just a moment. They, on the Ellensburg School District website, which is on the sheet, there is transition on there, and there's a lot of good forms and
We
stuff.
just did that.
It's
We
quite,
just
it's
did
very
that.
good. And in
Go
fact,
look at it. Go
most
look
of the
at
forms
it.
you're going to see back there are available there, so
Yeah.
it's worth doing.
I have a question regarding autism and special ed.
Mhm.
And first I want to say that I have the utmost respect for special ed teachers. They are not paid nearly enough
True.
for what they do. And they really are the people who inspire and
Well, and let's also say the aides.
You know,
that
our
are there as well.
educational assistants have, yes.
truly, I agree. And I mean, it's, you guys just go above and beyond. My question was, in regards to those who are so-called higher functioning students, what, if a family thought that their child had some sort of maybe autism or some other learning disability and they weren't sure what that was, how would they find the resources to maybe get an evaluation? Because I've been told by many that they're just not here in Ellensburg.
If you want us to see if they qualify for special education, is that your question?
Well, like
An evaluation?
in my case, like I was in special ed growing up
Yeah.
my entire life, and I always I guess my concern is the people like myself who went through school not kind of understanding why they were the way they were.
You didn't have a diagnosis.
You know, I might need to have Mary Kay jump in on this one. First of all, if you ever, want your child evaluated by the school to figure out if they're not making the same gains as their peers in an educational setting, you request that through the special education department at the district office or, the school. It's usually quicker, and, there's deadlines that, has to be kept to and responded to. To your question, I think about trying to find someone in the medical field to,
Let's ask some of the people we have in the
Yeah,
audience. So
Debbie's
if,
doing a great job.
no, you back row right there.
well, we have some
I'm
medical
watching
people
you
here
guys.
too. This is not necessarily a school
Yeah.
question. So if I wanted a diagnosis, or I want to have my child diagnosed, where am I going to go, Michelle? I go to my doctor, right?
Diagnosed with what?
With autism,
Well, there's a couple things to be aware of. We can provide in this county free ages and stages questionnaires to help you with your young children under 5 to begin to look at growth and development to see if the children are within that continuum, and it is a continuum. Kathy Eidler works with that, Liz Whitaker works with that, I work with that. We have it free at all the parent-child learning events put on by the Kittitas County Early Learning Coalition. And our goal is to ensure developmental screening everywhere in the county. So that is a free service. We've also been working with the health department to be sure that all the clinics and the providers are trained so that when you bring your child in for well child checks, they're doing developmental screening. So that's a beginning step. But what I also hear people say is, well, I have a concern, and maybe we try to get evaluated by the school district or the Birth to 3 program. But sometimes there's just that gray area, I mean, it's that not obvious disability. And where do you go? And it's an issue in this county. Because getting into Children's Village is a slow process for behavioral evaluation. So hopefully I'll live to be 150. And my goal is that we would have people in this county who could do those behavioral evaluations that I think our families are really needing. But it's a whole. But you contact me and I'll try to help you do that.
Well, and there's other, let's go here first.
It's for the Sues in the world, it's persistent. My daughter probably could have been diagnosed at the age of 3, but wasn't diagnosed until the age of 9 because she just didn't meet the obvious criteria. And so, it takes that parent advocate to say, something's not right, something's not right, something's not right. There really isn't anybody here that feels like they qualify to make that diagnosis. The best they can do is refer to Children's Village, and it does take a while to get in, but they will give you the forms to fill out, you fill out the forms, the schools fill out the
What is
forms.
Children's Village?
It's a place where they specialize for physical and mental disabilities. Like I said, I went there for various ones, including I had a walking issue when I was very younger, and they helped me get through that. And speech impediment, they help with speech impediment as well as body movements. They cover a wide range of things.
It's in Yakima, it's probably the closest resource. Do we have two children?
When I was diagnosed,
I called around to get a diagnosis for my son. I called all the hospitals here in Washington State. The place that we got in was Marybridge to get a diagnosis, and it was like a month after I called it and got it, and then got evaluated. So Children's Village, they sent us up to a year wait list. Children's Hospital in Seattle was a year. UW was a year. So we went to Marybridge, and Dr. Hood diagnosed her.
I think the one thing we're hearing, it's an issue. If we can't answer the question, it's an issue.
Yeah, we had to go out of state, or out of county as well, for diagnosis, and that was starting young. We were on 4 different wait lists as well, and the minimum was like an 8-month wait list. But it's that persistence. I kept calling. I got a wait list and got in sooner to Children's Autism Clinic and got diagnosis. And what I had heard, our son's only 6, but knowing that he was kind of going into the school system, unfortunately, the rumors we heard were you won't get taken seriously or you won't get the services that your son needs in the school system unless he has an official diagnosis. And that was so concerning to us going, and I'm not saying that that's true, but having a diagnosis definitely clears a path.
Well, and it's critical to get it because
Absolutely.
Debbie's going to tell us all about it if you don't have one.
Right.
We're in trouble now.
Because then you're just talking about delays and
Right.
Yeah.
delays.
By 9, we tend to want to, I think, have a more definite diagnosis. I think under 9, can lump a lot of people in the developmental delay.
Sure.
Or they give you the ABD label, which is what I had when I was 26.
And I think, again, for the Sues of the world, this is a very big problem.
Yeah, it is.
And so they do fall between a whole bunch of cracks. But let's move forward. So at 16, we were going to do the transition IEP. Oh, Elizabeth, yes.
My daughter does not have, she's not on the spectrum, but she does have needs, and she's graduating. And since we do have a special ed director here, I just want you to know that this is awesome, Debbie. I wish my daughter.
I know, isn't it awesome?
It's so awesome. I can't even tell you all the stuff you give these kids. It's a little overwhelming. This is in kid-friendly language. But if Rachel had seen that she might have helped with housekeeping, maybe not, but at least she wouldn't be embarrassed to say it. Create friends, terrible time with friends. And this is, and I'm not going to talk about it, I'm just saying that when you are in a position, I wish we had this. And I hope they use this in good times too, because this is really awesome.
And there are parents that have, if you miss this step, you've got a lot of problems down the road.
Oh, you sure do.
And so the one thing that Michelle told me I needed to say is that parental involvement is critical at this point. And it really is, and I think it is something that isn't, it's not emphasized enough.
Oh, and another thing, examine. One of the hardest things that kids have, and I would imagine it would be true, children that would expect, my daughter is in school, in high school, and I'm telling her about boundaries. I actually wrote that I would send a kid, I did this today for high school, Q-Test is a great program. I wished Ellisburg would, use it for role models. I know there's no roping, there's no holding hands. That is such a confusing aspect. Go to school, your kids are inappropriate, they watch inappropriate things, and they come home and they're in trouble from the school because they were inappropriate. But everything inappropriate is happening with our typical kids. But Q-Test, I have always said, they hold the standard. So that is a huge problem.
And if your child is ever disciplined within the school, they have to have a manifestation determination within 10 days, and that is to determine if the behavior was because of the disability. If the behavior is because of the disability, you then have to file you got to do a lot more paperwork, but you get to do a functional behavior analysis and then make plans to make sure that the behavior won't be repeated. Because obviously someone that does not understand groping is bad. And if they're low functioning,
I'm going to jump our conversation though, because we can spend all
Yeah.
night doing
That's
this, and I
like-
want to really stay on the transition part.
Yes.
So let's go up to the next age. So let's talk about 17.
Okay.
And
Yes.
from the school perspective, and then I want to see what Gretchen has to say, and then some of our other, because I think we're starting to get where there's more pieces moving now.
Yes, a lot more pieces are starting to move. Once your kid